Welcome to Meldon Law and Friends. We have a great show for you today. One of the most famous and iconic sports writers that have covered the Gator Nation over the years, Pat Dooley, is going to be our guest. I can't wait to hear Pat talk about the Gators and all other sports that he's been living and reporting on for the last 40 years or so. So we're going to have a great show. I want to go over a few things coming up. We got Billy Joel's show coming to the Riley. It's not Billy Joel, but apparently they're going to have an incredible show. June 3rd at 7:30 at the Riley in Ocala. Street Life Serenader. Dedicated to the music and legacy of Billy Joel. Songs like Piano Man, Uptown Girl, Still Rock and Roll to Me. So Saturday night, June 3rd at 7:30, support the Riley. It's an awesome place to go see a show. And we love Wind FM and everything that they're doing to support the arts. Law Talk Live Radio. So last weekend, we had a really good show, going over some of the legal questions that people have, particularly with there's new laws that have gone into effect that affect accidents. So if you want to be up to date on what's going on, turn in Law Talk Live on the Sky, WSKY 97.3 every Saturday at 10:30. We're in our 21st year, so that's pretty cool. We're excited to have that show on, and we think we've helped a lot of people figure out what to do over the years. My wife, Patricia, and myself have been chairing the Alzheimer's Foundation and the Alzheimer's Walk that's going to be coming up in October. Now's the time, if you have a group, a company, we would encourage you to reach out to Meldon Law, because we're putting together teams to help raise money and have people walk in the fall. It's the Saturday before the Florida-Georgia game, which is a busy weekend, and we want to have everybody do the walk with us. It's going to start at 9 in the morning. So let's raise some money. Last year, Meldon Law donated $19.71. By the way, 1971 is the year that Meldon Law was founded. 1971 for every free throw made by the Gator basketball teams, both men and women. And we raised $10,000. And we had a great time with Coach Todd Golden. We had a big check, and he was there to share in the presentation to the Alzheimer's Foundation. So we're very, very excited about this coming year. John Tull from Florida Sports Property is going to co-chair with Patricia and I. So that's cool. Alzheimer's is really making advances. We're all affected by family members who are dealing with dementia, Alzheimer's. There's a lot going on right now, and in the next 2 to 5 years, I think we're going to see remarkable advances as far as treating and slowing the progression of Alzheimer's among our loved ones. Meldon Law. Let's see, we're in year 52 at Meldon Law. That's exciting. We had a great family. The Meldon Law team got together, the leadership team got together. We spent a whole day away from the office in a seminar led by our friends from CRISP out of Atlanta, and really focused in on the client experience and how to make the client experience better, how to make sure that our clients have the best experience at Meldon Law, and our goal is always to have our clients refer their friends and family to us. So that's one of the things that we think differentiates Meldon Law from the rest of the law firms. Number one, we're local. We have offices in Ocala, Gainesville, Lake City. You can come meet with your attorney. You can meet with Meldon. All the other law firms that are on TV, except for a couple local ones, are you're never gonna see the person who you see on the screen. They're not going to be involved in your case. And local matters, we really do we think, based on information we've got, that we get better results because we put more time in the case, we focus in on the case, and we really are excited about helping our clients put their lives back together after a serious crash or any other kind of accident. So Meldon Law, you can go to meldonlaw.com. You can check us out. Just give us a call. 352-373-8000 is our phone number. We're easy to find. And again, we've got fully staffed offices in Gainesville, Ocala, Lake City. So have us help you, and we're going to be there when you want to meet with us in person in the office with a real live attorney. You're not just a number. We don't have 25,000 cases where everybody is just a case number. In Meldon Law, we know your name, we know your case, we'll meet you in person, and that's an advantage. And we think Meldon Law gives you an advantage in any kind of accident case. So give us a call. You can visit our website, meldonlaw.com, or call 352-373-8000. So that's what's going on. We're very excited to have our guest, Pat Dooley, and we're going to take a short break and be back with famous sports writer Pat Dooley.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, two things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
and our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Jeffrey, what are you doing?
Well, I'm joining the band, of course. Since Meldon Law is the official law firm partner of the Florida Gators, I want to help.
Dad, we're litigators. Let's stick to helping people in the courtroom.
Well, can we still hang out and jam a little bit?
At Meldon Law, we won't back down.
I was going down a one-way street and a girl that was driving her car T-boned me on my scooter. I ended up going for an MRI and discovering that I had 2 herniated discs. Coming to Cary allowed me to not have to worry about what doctor I was going to see or what physical therapist I had to go to. They say, these are the people we trust. You're going to have a great experience there, and I honestly did each time.
Call Meldon Law. Your consultation is absolutely free.
I was driving behind a lady, and very suddenly she moved out of the way. There was a log laying in the road, and when I hit my brakes, I went on top of the log. I had 2 herniated discs. I just haven't been the same since. Jeffrey Meldon fought for me all the way. Him and his team really went there for me. Throughout the whole lawsuit, he made sure that my bills was paid. It was never no whenever I called him and asked him for something.
Call Meldon Law right now.
And I was in an accident. Someone ran a red light and hit me, and I was hurt. You don't know where to turn. Luckily, I called Jeffrey. These big insurance companies, they don't want you to win. They truly don't. But Jeffrey and his firm and the people that work here, they just really fight for you. You call the law offices of Jeffrey Meldon because you're going to need help, and they will help you.
Call Meldon Law right now.
Hey, Sammy, look who's there. Say hi.
Hey!
You again!
Meldon Law, Jeffrey speaking.
Somebody else hit us here!
Here we go again. Welcome back to Meldon Law and Friends. I'm here with my good friend Pat Dooley, super famous sports writer. And how you doing today, Pat?
I didn't know we were friends. Now I know. It says Meldon Law and Friends up there, so we are friends.
We are.
No, I'm doing great, and I'm kind of getting my life back together after the golf tournament, which you were a big part of, and I appreciate you very much.
You know, so every year, Pat and his brother do a golf tournament in honor of his dad, Bob Dooley. Mm-hmm. And it's the best golf tournament in the city of Gainesville each year. Then there's about 30 of them that go on all year long. How did you start that tournament, Pat?
You know, it's funny because my dad had prostate cancer surgery, and he was at Mayo Clinic, and he was they left him under the anesthesia a little long, and it made him nauseous. So when he gets out, he's got pain and nausea, which is the worst combination I think that anybody can have. And I just said, you know, I've been thinking about having a tournament. My dad ran a tournament for 25 years for the Knights of Columbus. And
where at?
In St. Augustine.
And that's where you're from?
Yes, I grew up in St. Augustine. Yeah, I was born here but grew up in St. Augustine. But I said, you know, I've been thinking about doing a golf tournament, doing something. Let's do it for Dad, for Bob. And it started off with 44 guys and 40 hats for first place. Now it's turned into this mega tournament, and you know, I think we raised 31 grand this year. I think we raised 300 the first year. Now we raised 31 grand, so we've come somewhere.
Well, you know what? I think it's great. The Friday night party's fun.
Yep.
Getting everybody out on Saturday. So anyhow, next year we're going to make sure that. Actually, it was oversold. I mean, there were people waiting to participate. So if you're listening and you want to go to a great tournament, register early. And that way you're assured of getting a spot.
If you give me money right now, you'll play in the tournament. That's what I'm saying. It is all about getting the money so I don't have to chase checks. I remember the early years. You are supposed to turn your phone off when you're doing the show? Yes, okay, I'll do that. In the early years of the tournament, there were guys who didn't pay, and they were going to pay later, and I didn't have any money, and I would have to literally be hunting them down so I could pay my electric bill. But I'm okay now. I'm okay.
So if people want to support the Bob Dooley tournament, where do they go? Do you have a website or what?
We do have a website, but we don't really look at it. It's mainly go to stopchildrenscancer.org. Stop
Children's Cancer is where the money goes.
Yep.
Where Howard Freeman, started that 40 some years ago.
Yep.
As a tribute to his daughter who had passed away from I think leukemia. And anyhow. Pat kind of adopted Stop Children's Cancer as a worthy organization, and it is more so than anything in Gainesville because we have one of the largest centers for children's cancer.
Exactly.
And so the money really goes a long way. It goes to the people that are doing some incredible work.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing. We honor usually one or two young people that have either won the battle against cancer or are winning the battle against cancer before the tournament, before we tee off, and Dr. Slayton comes up and talks about them a little bit. And there were a lot of people that got a little misty-eyed. The two we honored this year. So it's hey, look, this is what, and you know this better than anybody, Jeffrey, because you're in the middle of it all. But the more you give back to a community, the more the community gives back to you. And the more, when I go asking people for stuff for the tournament, they are usually really receptive. And the reason is because they love the charity and they love, what we're doing and what we're trying to build.
So anyhow, we're going to, really encourage people to continue to donate to Stop Children's Cancer. Go to their website and, be part of a fund of. It's a great time. It's really fun. The silent auction is awesome. And
93 items this year. May have been too many, but we made a lot of money on them, so that was good. I think we made like almost 20 grand just on the silent auction.
Okay, it's wonderful, and I know I've been bidding on stuff when I go, and I have some great swag from the live auction there.
What's the best thing you ever won there?
I don't know. Maybe that's a tough one. Maybe a helmet.
There's a lot of helmets. We had 32 this year. So.
Yeah, the helmets are pretty cool, and they have them signed by famous, coaches or players or whatever. So that's a big deal. Anyhow, Pat, I want to start back with how you wound up being a sports reporter in Gainesville. I know you were raised in St. Augustine. Right. Where'd you go to school at?
I went to St. Augustine High, but it's funny because my mom saw this in me when I was very young. I would write cut lines. I would cut out pictures of Florida games and make a scrapbook, and then I would write these elaborate cut lines. And she said, I knew you were going to be a writer one day. I didn't. That's not why I was doing it. It just came natural. And when I went to college at St. John's River Community College, the Fighting Vikings, which nobody can figure out why they're called the Vikings. I'm not sure a lot of, Norse people went up the St. John's River trying to discover Minnesota, so I went there and I still didn't know what I was going to do. And I went to, somebody said journalism was easy, and I said, let me do that then. So I got into journalism, and it just kind of clicked for me. I was lucky. I got to work at the Gainesville Sun when I was a student, and in retrospect, it really was shallow, but it helped my career. They just let me do everything. They wouldn't even show up to work. They would just, the paper was a PM back in the old days,
right?
An afternoon paper.
The afternoon paper.
So you come in at 3 a.m. to lay it out, and I would come in and do all the things and write all the headlines and everything. Nobody'd show up till like 9 o'clock. They'd come in, with cigars and say, hey, there's a typo here on this page. You need to send that one back. So that allowed me to understand how newspapers are put together. And I don't think the writing part of it took a while. I was very lucky. In my first job was in Fort Lauderdale, a full-time job. And Bernie Linscomb, one of the great writers there's ever been, was a columnist there. And he kind of took me under his wing a little bit and helped me out. So that kind of made me understand the path to being good. And I'm still on the path, still hoping to be good one day.
So when was it that you started working with the Gainesville Sun?
That was 87. It's an interesting story, Jeff, because my friend Jeff Miller all of a sudden comes in one day and tells me, hey, I just became the sports editor of the Gainesville Sun. I goes, that's like my dream job. I always wanted to be the sports editor of the Gainesville Sun. And I said, I didn't even know the job was open. He goes, well, it was, and I got it. I go, God. 2 days later, he walks into Diane McFarland's office, who later became the dean at Florida of the journalism school and was the executive editor there, and says, hey, I'm going to Dallas. I've got an interview there for another job. And of course, she's like, what? He goes, gets the job, comes back. All right, I'm done. So luckily, I found out about it, and I said, well, that's the job I want. Let me go get it. So
now, had you been working in Fort Lauderdale?
No, I was in Jacksonville. I was at the Times Union. I was covering the NFL, and I loved what I was doing. They would literally, this is when newspapers were flush with money, the opposite of what they are now. But they would literally say, pick out a good NFL game to cover, and go there, come back with a couple other feature stories and columns, and cover the game and everything. Whatever game you want to go. I go, well, I hear Seattle's playing this week. Yeah, go to Seattle. John L. Williams, you can do something on him. So I was living a good life in that respect. I covered the USFL too, and I love that. But they had folded. It didn't look at the time like Jacksonville was going to get a team soon. They tried so hard with Colt Fever and the Houston Oilers they were trying to get. New Orleans they had talks with, but they couldn't get anybody. And so when they offered me the job, they liked my interview, and I said, let's do it. Let me be a sports editor. Hardest job I ever had in my life.
So in '87, you became the
87.
sports editor for the Gainesville Sun.
It was my first day of work was Emmitt Smith's second game of his freshman year. Yeah.
Now, I know Emmett was well known as far as his high school career. When he started at Florida, what was it like? Because our team was okay, but it wasn't, great at the time.
No, and I make this point all the time that as good as Emmett was, they went 20-14 during his career. I mean, it wasn't like they won a lot of games. He was a great player though, and we knew he was. And I remember the recruiting at the time was not a big deal, but this class kind of was the beginning of the recruiting mania, and it becoming a cottage industry. In fact, I think we set up I think the next year we set up an answering machine so we wouldn't have to keep answering the phone. Yeah, here's who they got, here's who they got. And so we set up an answering machine, and it actually burned up. There were so many calls coming into it. So that's when, but the Emmett class was kind of the one that kind of started that. But yeah, he was, that third game I think it was, he goes for 221 against Alabama in Birmingham. Then we went, holy cow, they got something special. The problem was, they had a good defense, and they had Emmett, and they lost a lot of close games. They just couldn't get over the hump. And then one year Emmett got hurt, Kyle Morris got hurt. They had a gambling scandal that Kyle Morris got caught up in.
And the basketball had a gambling scandal, or I don't know if it was a gambling scandal. It was something that wasn't fully reported on.
Which one? I mean,
Norm Sloan and
there were all kinds of scandals there. Believe me, that was not a good situation. And when the NCAA came in, it was with the backing of the athletic director at the time, Bill Arnsparger. He was like, "Get this guy out of here. We're happy to get rid of him." And unfortunately, at the same time, Galen Hall got caught up in it. There were just minor violations. Some of them still Galen denies to this day, and they got rid of him because they wanted to clean house. And Galen was a really good person, and I always felt that he got steamrolled. But because they got rid of him, they got Steve Spurrier, so it worked out.
Yeah. So you come in just before the golden era of Florida football starts,
right?
And then all of a sudden, so we were cleaning house, and we wind up, I guess Lon Kruger wound up eventually running the basketball program,
right.
90 maybe?
90, well, yeah, he would have been 90, 91.
91.
Season, yeah.
Spurrier comes in 90.
90.
Okay, so what was the buzz like in the sports room when these two guys come in?
Well, the funny thing is, like, for example, my plan was to come here, work 3 or 4 years, maybe at the most, turn the paper around. The paper was awful at the time. No offense to anybody, but it wasn't very good. It wasn't very well laid out. They had great plans to do new things, and they needed somebody to come in and help and be the architect of it, or more the director. I wasn't really an architect. And so it was looking good, and that was my plan. But then we got so caught up in all these investigations. We had a spotlight team. We had 4 reporters and an editor who only worked on getting Norm Sloan. That's all they worked. That's all they worked on. They don't have 4 writers and an editor over there now at all. They don't have that many people. We had just a team that just did nothing but that. So you kind of kept getting caught up in things. And then Spurrier comes, and then we go through the student murders at the same time, right around that time. It was Spurrier's first year. In fact, right before his first game, was when it was kind of really at a peak. So you just kind of get lost in what's going on. But what started happening were all these great things at Florida after, certainly I'm not equating a guy getting fired with people getting killed, not by any stretch of the imagination. How would I do that? But I'm just saying there was a lot of negativity around this city going on. People were scared. And people weren't expecting a whole lot from their athletic programs, but they needed that distraction. And then Spurrier provided it. And then he told everybody he was going to beat them again.
Yeah, well, look, when Spurrier came here, people were excited because he had won the Heisman Trophy here. He had done some pretty cool things during his, career. He had taken Duke to a national, an ACC championship, right? And 89, yeah, and it's like Duke, an ACC champ, against Florida State, Miami, and Clemson, and you know. So anyhow,
well, Florida State wasn't in it then, but yeah, they beat Clemson, was their big win that they got, and that's the one that he will tell you is one of his probably 2 or 3 favorite wins of all time. Yeah, beating Clemson.
So anyhow, so Spurrier comes in here. How did you get to know Steve really, quickly?
Well, the funny thing is because Steve, being Steve, answered his own phone at Duke, okay? So we all had his number. All the hacks had his number. So all the writers would be sitting there and they go, nothing's happened on this Spurrier thing for a day. Let me give him a call. Hey, Coach, how you doing? Pat Dooley from the Gainesville Sun. Yeah. What's going on? You looking for some scoop? And I'm like, well, yeah. If you got anything for me, he goes, nah. We'll let you know later. And I'll never forget this. At his introductory press conference was on New Year's Eve '89, and he said, "I want to apologize to all you sports writers because I don't know if I was totally truthful with you." Because I knew that I had the job, but I hadn't accepted it yet. So I could tell you that I hadn't accepted it, and that's the way I wanted it to be. But I wasn't 100% on it. And I'm like, this is different. This is a coach who's apologizing to us because he didn't give us scoop. But that's when I knew things were going to be different here in Florida. And the other thing was going to the blue jerseys, wanting to get the artificial turf out of there. These were all things that I was in favor of. And of course, the first press conference, he said he wanted to play Miami, but they couldn't work that out.
Yeah, and it was, the artificial turf, for those of you that don't remember, AstroTurf was this huge deal back in the 60s, Houston Astrodome. Yep. And the problem was, they had a concrete-like surface underneath the AstroTurf, so it felt really good if you were walking on it, but as soon as you were hit hard and you slammed your shoulder or knee or head on it, it was like going down on concrete.
Yeah, I remember Wilbur Marshall told me, because I asked him this question. Charlie Pell came out and took a victory lap after they beat USC here in Gainesville. It's 100 degrees on that turf. And I asked Wilbur if he was on that lap, and he said, I just wanted to pass out. I went into the locker room and just laid there. I didn't want to do anything, but it was brutal. Think about how hot it is now on a September day, noon game. But all the games were at 1 o'clock, pretty much then.
Now, okay, so going back to the 30s, 40s, 50s, did students wear sport coats and ties and sit in 90-degree heat at 1 o'clock for a football game?
Well, you may not be aware of this, but I wasn't at those games in the 30s, okay? I did not attend them. However, when I was writing one of the books I wrote, I called my dad to find out what it was like in the 50s. And he said that he never remembers it being that hot, but you could take your own alcohol into the stadium. So guys would show up with big coolers full of martinis and just sit there and drink martinis watching the Gators play football. And I'm like, this seems like a pretty good idea. I mean, maybe they should have a martini dispenser down there. But there's a reason their dolphin shorts were invented. Well, there's 2 reasons actually. But I mean, that's the bottom line is people just got to a point where they were like, I don't have to wear this anymore, do I? I don't have to wear this bow tie to the game. and a straw hat, you know. Hello, my baby.
I know. I grew up in a sports town, Cleveland, and I followed. It started out with Otto Graham, and then there was this running back named Jim Brown. And
by the way, my favorite player of all time is Jim Brown.
What a friggin' athlete!
He was unbelievable.
I
love that guy.
Do you know that he played lacrosse at Syracuse, and a lot of people say he may have been the best lacrosse player in the history.
Yeah. Nobody argues with you on that ever saw him play or that even knows anything about Syracuse and lacrosse or anything. Nobody even argues with that point. They always go, yeah, he probably was.
Yeah. And to this day, many people regard him as the greatest running back.
I think he is, yeah.
He had a 9-year career, I think, and, he was averaging, 6 yards a carry or something. I also went to Ohio State and saw Woody Hayes, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and I was there when Woody was winning. And
yeah, well, I'll tell you a quick Woody Hayes story, because I was on the sideline for the last game.
Oh, the Jacksonville.
In Jacksonville. And I'm on the other sideline. I'm on the Clemson sideline. So I don't really see what's happening over there. I didn't find out about it till later. But I knew something was going on. There was a disturbance of some kind going on. And I'm standing there, and Charlie Bauman, who's the player that he hit, comes running off, and I'm standing there. I go, what happened? He goes, the old man hit me. And so I'm like, really? So I scribble it down. I go, we had the only quote of anybody in the country the next day. The old man hit me. That was our quote. I don't know if he knew I was a sports writer, but I had a notebook right there. So the next day he was fired. They found him in a hotel. They had to go find him in the parking lot of the hotel, the fire, I remember, in Jacksonville.
Yeah, it was kind of sad because he had a storied career.
Yeah.
Probably.
He was a nut, too.
Well, he's not the only football coach that's a nut.
I think 90% of them are nuts, yeah.
Well, not only that.
I think you have to have that gene, that nut gene, where you're willing to take things to extreme levels, whether you're trying to motivate, whether you're trying to recruit, whether you're trying to discipline, you have to be extreme.
Well, that's an interesting point. Let's take the conversation to what's going on currently in college football, because we have NIL, you have these billion-dollar TV contracts. You have, in my opinion, fewer people coming to the stadiums because they can sit at home and watch a 75-inch high-def TV and enjoy a beer rather than sitting out in 90-degree weather.
Right.
Let's talk about what you see on the landscape right now as far as college football.
I have no idea. That is an answer I keep getting from my friends that are in the business too. And they just know it's not going to look anything like this in 5 years. But we just don't know what is going to happen. Is it going to be massive, new conferences where you have 4 20-team conferences and maybe the ACC gets shoved to the side, or the Pac-12 gets shoved to the side? Where is NIL going to be? Is it going to be regulated? Congress is already talking about doing something about that. We'd like to see it more transparent, but I don't know if it's ever going to be. And if it gets regulated, then that just means people that want to cheat are going to cheat. They're still going to cheat. So. But it's an interesting time to be caring about this. I do want to say this though. Last year there was actually a rise in attendance for the first time in 7 or 8 years. And my thinking is this is the first year people were back to not being scared to go out. It's COVID related. That's my
Well, that's since 2020, but before that.
But it was going down. That's my point.
Going down.
But then all of a sudden, it goes up. Now I'm curious to see what it's like this year, because now, we'll see whether attendance drops or goes up. But it had been going down every year for like 7 straight years, and then last year it went up. And I do think it's just people, they're doing more, they're getting better games, which they know they have to do. They're doing more for the fans. But the main thing is, I think people just were feeling comfortable. Will they feel? I mean, they're going to feel the same way in 2023 they felt in 2018, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if it. I'm curious to see where it goes there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any, statistical validation. I just know that when I was going to the Gator game before COVID, I'd look at the student section and, it was fewer and fewer students there. And I was thinking to myself, wow, it's too bad the students are missing out on a pretty cool experience. And they should be, that's part of college life, or at least it was for me.
Yeah, and I think they've done a better job of trying to sell the students on it. Last year they had pretty good attendance, but the bottom line is they're going to redo the Swamp over the next 5 or 6 years, and they're going to reduce capacity, and the students are going to lose some seating. I don't know how much, maybe 1,000 seats, maybe 10,000. They've got to figure out what they're going to do there, but it's kind of like the students need to show it this year and next year. Hey, we're in this thing. We're gonna keep coming to games. Don't take our seats away, because if they don't, it's going to give them an excuse to take away cheap, or I don't know if they're free or cheap. I don't know. They pay something for them, I think, but to take those seats away.
Yeah. Well, look, all I can say is, I've been going to a lot of Gator games for a long time, and when I see people, I'll look in the north end zone and in the upper deck, right? It's silver, because they have the aluminum seats. And even
Jeffrey, would you sit up there?
No,
in those seats,
not except for a night game.
Yeah, but it would, like when Florida plays McNeese State this year,
right?
And probably be a noon SEC Network kickoff.
I know. Well, and so the point that I'm bringing up is that it's challenging to get people into stadiums now, and my theory is that there's a really good alternative experience that wasn't there 20 years ago or 25 years ago, which is, your 75-inch high-def TV in air conditioning and a beer in your hand.
Well, here's going to be the interesting thing. Like for some of these, it's not going to be a problem for the SEC or Big Ten, but like the Pac-12 is talking about streaming. So a lot of people are going to go, well, I guess I better go to the game if I'm going to have to watch it on streaming, because I don't have Paramount Plus. I don't have, net whatever. A lot of people, not everybody in the world has streaming services at home. So we'll see how that much affects it. But you're right. It's not enough that the Gators are playing. You've got to be playing somebody. And I know that they're playing 2 softies this year, but they're not going to be very many. What's going to be interesting is whether the SEC, we're going to find this out next week, goes to 8 or 9 games, and that's where we still don't know, because there appears to still be a battle royale for that.
So here,
because if you have 9, now you got guaranteed 9 games that matter, right?
Yes, and for the Gators, you got Florida State. You're 10 games that matter.
Next year they've got Miami and UCF on the schedule next. Now they're going to have to move one of those games if they go to 9, but if they don't go to 9, they'll keep them in there.
So what I'm hearing is that the people that are college football fanatics would love to have maybe an 8-game playoff, so that if you have the SEC move to 9 games and somebody has two losses, they can still get in. If you look at the NFL, the way they have the playoffs, you can win 9 or 10 games and sneak in. In the SEC, there's no way that more than 1 or 2 teams is going to go, undefeated or 1 loss.
Yeah, this year. Yeah, and it has happened. They played. Obviously Alabama and Georgia played for a national championship, but next year we do go to the 12-team playoff, and that's going to make a huge difference, and it's going to allow teams even to schedule tougher. Most of the good ADs, and that includes Scott Strickland, Greg McGarity when he was at Georgia, Greg Byrne. I'm blanking out on the guy's name at Tennessee, Danny White. They kind of saw ahead on this, and they were already getting schedules prepared for a 12-team playoff, because when you have a 12-team playoff, now you can lose twice and you can get in. So now you can bring in all these really good teams, the Oklahomas, and now of course now the SEC's got, everybody's got Oklahoma, but you can bring in Notre Dame, you can bring in Utah, good example.
What a great game last year, right?
Oh, it's unbelievable.
You know,
may not be as good this year, but we'll see.
Well, I'm going out there for a week.
Are you? I'm
going to stay in Park City and hang out in the mountains and enjoy it, and then run over for the game.
Do you need me to come out and I'll do? Hey, I can just be a guy serving you martinis if you want. I can do that.
Well, I think we're going to have to make some plans here.
Okay.
I mean,
Yes.
because
I cook. I can chop up some cheese and stuff like that.
So, getting back to newspaper business, right? I read newspapers now mostly digitally. The only newspaper that I have delivered is the Gainesville Sun that I have delivered to the office, and it's interesting because the news is 2 or 3 days old.
Oh yeah.
And when I'm thinking to myself, why open a sports page where the news is 2 or 3 days old? I mean, things are changing. However, I have so many apps on my phone that I feel like I'm more connected to what's going on to sports. Let's talk about that, the change from newspaper to digital and where that's going.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching an old movie the other day. It was a black and white movie, probably from the 50s or something, and the woman had a newspaper out, and it was like this big. And I'm like, the paper now is like this big. It is a weird dynamic in this profession, and I'm glad I'm out of it now. It's no reflection on the Gainesville Sun, no reflection on the bosses there. Everybody treated me great, loved it there, loved my time there, but I'm glad I'm out of it. But newspapers started this when it started going south, because for a while they were just loaded. I mean, newspapers made so much money. When it started to go south, they said, hey, here's an answer. We'll give you less and charge you more and see how that works out. And it just went, and newspapers as a whole, this isn't just Gainesville, this isn't I'm not singling them out, but as a whole, we're not quick to understand the power of the internet and what you could do to make it great. Now, we were a little bit late, but we were very good at what we did for the internet. Now it's all about the internet. That's where you're selling all your advertising. Classified ads are going. That to me is something that doesn't get talked about a lot. When classified ads went digital, it eliminated a huge source of revenue for newspapers, and it's one reason that they're all folding, and buildings. My old Times Union building is rubble now, and the Tribune building's rubble now, and I mean it's just the Gainesville Sun's still there. I don't go by it as much, but it's still there, but who knows when pretty soon it'll be an apartment complex.
Now, would you say that there's more engagement with sport fans now that we've transitioned to digital?
Yeah, maybe too much.
It's pretty crazy right now. I mean,
yeah.
If somebody wiggles their ear, all of a sudden it's on Twitter or Instagram or something, and, it's like you can't wait to, see what's going to happen with this story or that story. So
think about the old days when you would write something that somebody didn't like and they had to write you a letter. So by the time you got the letter, you would look at it and you go, hey, that guy's being really mean to me. He put his phone number. I'm going to call him up. And he'll go, oh, I wrote that when I was mad 3 days ago. I'm okay now. I'm over it. But, I mean, now it's like immediate. You see something happen and you go, this coach has to be fired. And then the next play you score a touchdown. Well, maybe not today.
So when I was a kid, in 1954, Cleveland, and the Cleveland Indians had the greatest season of any American League team in the history of the American League. They won 111 games, lost 43 when they only played 154 games.
Bob Feller pitching for them?
There was Bob Feller, Early Wynn, Bob Lemon, Mike Garcia, Hal Newhouser, Don Morris. They had some strong team. And I used to listen to the games on the radio because not everything was on TV,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Nothing was on TV.
A few things. So once in a while, they started in the 50s. And I, I was a little kid and I got so into it that year. If the Indians lost a game, I would cry at the end of the broadcast,
Sounds like me in my 40s, yeah.
So anyhow, that transition to say, okay, we're up to the 90s, Spurrier comes here. It's before cell phones. It's before, the internet, really. It's before, we're still consuming our information through the newspaper and the radio and TV, although you didn't have, 600 games a month on TV like we do now.
You get one a week.
Yeah, I mean, now actually with ESPN Plus and SEC Plus and all that, you can literally watch 60, 70, 80 games a day if you really want to.
I think I have.
So compare what it was like here in the, when Spurrier was just, fun and gun and everything's going on to where it is now.
Yeah, it was so unique in that back in those days, I mean, going even through the I would say the late 90s, what you wrote in the paper was huge. It was important to the players, the coaches. I mean, if you didn't get that 7 a.m. call from Steve Spurrier, Pat Dooley, you just don't get it, do you? If you didn't get that call, you weren't covering the beat. But the players too. I mean, I still have relationships with guys that played during that time, and some of them come on my podcast, and some of them are just good friends of mine. But they cared what you wrote about them too. I mean, they would read everything you wrote. I'm not sure today's player even knows that there are such a thing as newspapers. I mean, they don't read newspapers. They look and see what they're saying about them on Twitter. They look at their Instagram to see what's going on. It's not about somebody taking a newspaper and reading it, but that's the way society is. It's the way it is. I got out just in time, I guess.
Let's talk a little bit about the challenges that Coach Napier is facing right now because, it used to be Alabama was the big bad wolf, and now it's Georgia the big bad wolf, and we happen to play them every year, and they happen to be our number one rival. And I'm like going, man, Kirby Smart is rocking, and coming into this program, Coach Napier certainly has his hands full meeting that challenge.
It's tough. I think he's got a tougher deal than probably any coach. You could make an argument Coach Spurrier did because he had Tennessee and FSU as his rivals. I mean, in '98, they lose to him, could have won both games easily, and those two teams play for the national title. But for Billy right now, I mean, people are talking about how Alabama may be down. They may only go 11-2 this year. I'm like, I think everybody would lose their mind with 11-2 around here. But it is kind of like he started. Last year was last year was year zero, because he was trying to figure out what he had and what guys were going to buy in and what guys he was going to try to turn around to buy in. And the ones who didn't, he said, you're probably better off going somewhere else. So they're kind of starting from scratch, and I think he's got guys that are going to play well, play hard for him, not give up, not do stupid things. Nobody's going to throw a shoe, hopefully.
So in the past, at least the past 10 years or so, the Gators, it was like 3 years for one coach and then next coach, 3 years. And my thought is because of the huge challenges that the football coaches are facing in the SEC now, in particular Florida, that this may be a 4 or 5 year deal before he rebuilds the program.
Well, it may be. The question is, again, we got a new president here at the University of Florida. The athletic director is, has done a great job in certain areas, but certainly there's been some that had fallen a little bit short. Basketball hire would be one. Soccer hire would be another. But again, it's a football hire that matters. And you never know if the new president's going to say, hey, I didn't hire this guy. Another 6 or 7, let's get a new guy in here. I hope that doesn't happen, because that is just going to put Florida another 2 years behind the 8 ball. They've got to give this guy some time. Fans don't have to. They don't have to give anybody anything. They just got to either show up or don't show up. They're fans. What they want to do is up to them. Their prerogative. But Florida's not going to get where it wants to go again if they keep doing in fact, it went 4-3-4. Muschamp got 4 years. McElwain got 3. Mullen got 4. Now, in the middle of that, you had 3 division championships. You had a coach of the year. You had 3 New Year's Six bowls. All that, but it was like this. It was just a roller coaster, and that's what happens when you keep firing coaches. It's a roller coaster. You'll have teams that are successful, and then you'll have teams that are terrible. So we've never seen it be as bad as it's gotten this year. I mean, 10-1 was not as bad as 4-8. I'm sorry, 4-8 was worse.
Well, because of the expectations
of where Florida
was.
Yeah.
I mean, so in my mind. I see Napier doing some really good things. I think his recruiting plan is solid. And, we're talking now about, in a year from now or 2 years from now, we're recruiting and we're going to get, and then you got to wait another year or two till they fully develop into really good athletes. So realistically, if you don't give the guy another 3 or 4 years, the program is destined to repeat what we've been doing the last 12 years.
Yeah, and I think there's a reason why the previous 3 guys got let go. I mean, they all had different reasons, but there were reasons for it. I don't know that Florida's going to make a fire for a record. Okay, they haven't with anybody else. They didn't fire anybody for a record. They fired him because, in Muschamp's case, it had gotten toxic on the recruiting trail just because people were talking him down. And obviously there was death threats with McElwain, and then with Mullen, he quit recruiting. So there's different reasons for it, but I think this guy checks all the boxes still. But he's got to start winning games. Now, again, I don't think there's any way he's in any trouble this year. Next year, say he has a mediocre year. Next year, it starts out and it's mediocre again. Now maybe you do get the president involved in it. So we'll see what happens. He needs to win some games. There's no doubt about it.
Well, from my perspective, it all starts with having the team culture.
Yeah.
And then you actually have to have good recruiting. There's very few, when you're playing in the SEC and you see, Georgia and Alabama number 1, 2, or 3 every year after year after year, the deck's stacked against you.
And they're not going to quit recruiting just because Billy Napier's in town. But I mean, he's trying to do a lot of the things that they're doing at those places in terms of how they treat families and everything. So we'll see if it works.
Well, I think look, he's an excellent hire. I think he's going to succeed. I think the fans are going to scream and yell, no matter what.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but
that's what being a fan is.
That's
short for fanatic.
Fanatic, right? Yeah. It's like, how did you lose that game against Georgia? Well, they have a lot of 5-star and 4-star players that are really, really good.
When I got married in '99, Spurrier comes to my wedding, right? He's there. He was there with Jerry over in St. Augustine. And my dad gets up to give the toast speech. And this is a guy who's been pretty successful, right? And Coach Spurrier. And he says, yeah, it's great. You guys got married and everything. But he goes, Steve, are we going to beat Tennessee this year? I can't believe we lost. I'm like, Dad, come on, man. But, I mean, my dad was the ultimate Gator fan, so that's all he cared about. So I'm getting married, not that big a deal, but are we going to beat Tennessee?
Well, actually, from a sports writer's perspective, the Steve Spurrier era here was like magic in a bottle, okay? Because you got Pat Dooley, who's really, he's kind of hitting his stroke. He's been, the sports editor of the Sun for 3 years. And all of a sudden, Spurrier comes around and, the head ball coach, there's only one of him, right?
No, the most unique person I've ever met in my life.
I mean, Bowden was outspoken, but Spurrier was even more engaged than Bowden as far as...
Yeah, I like Bobby Bowden a lot. I covered him for several years, but Steve was different, and I remember telling somebody one day, I miss those days when I would walk into the press conference going, man, I don't have a good column idea for today. And I'd walk out with 3, because Spurrier would have gone into one diatribe about this and one, so I mean, we need a playoff, and then next thing you know, I can write that, So they were never boring. That's for sure. Never boring.
I'll tell you, Pat, this is wonderful. I'm so glad to have you on the show. This has
Happy to
been
be here.
a lot of fun, and I am always bullish on the Gators. I think we've got a terrific sports program here. For those of you that don't know, we've won over 250 SEC championships, and the number 2 team is somewhere around 155.
Yeah, it's not even close,
Not even close.
They aren't catchable, let's put it that way.
Yeah. So anyhow, our message is, y'all that are Gator fans, there's incredible athletics. For example, the baseball team, you're going to see them in the regional and hopefully the super regional. And day in and day out, there's great athletics at the University of Florida. Our gymnastic team is incredible. The basketball team, we're going to see some new talent, and it should be a fun year next year. And support Gator athletics, get involved, and it's not only football, although football rules, we understand.
Pays the bills, but it is more than that. And that's what I like about Gainesville, is they're so good in everything that you get to go to watch cool events. And I like every sport. So, I've been to lacrosse and everything.
Going to these baseball games, is that awesome or what?
It's been great. It's going to be interesting to see how they do in the regional, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think Sully's got the program humming, and
he does.
He has Gator baseball to the point where these really good pitchers, that maybe have one season left, one season of eligibility left, or let's go to the Gators because Sully's going to really raise our stock as far as major league draft.
And he takes care of his pitchers too. He does.
Well, that's his his specialty, right? So anyhow, Gator sports are great. We're here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, and if you haven't been here, you need to get here. This is kind of the epicenter now.
It is.
It's like our clubhouse, right?
I know. It's pretty amazing. But then you hear about who was here the night before. I think Freddie one day said, if somebody just set off a bomb here, I think the University of Florida would have ceased to exist. It would have taken everybody out that was of any importance. But
we really in Gainesville we didn't have a place. The closest place was Ballyhoo's, I guess. But
they still do great work over there. Thumbs up to Ballyhoo. They're a sponsor of my golf tournament and of my podcast as well. So Bill does a great job.
Yeah, he's terrific. So anyhow, we always give a shout out to Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. They created this incredible podcast room, and we want to thank everybody for watching and listening today. It's been great hanging out with Pat Dooley and covering the landscape of what's going on as far as Gator sports, past and future. And we're going to be back next week on Meldon Law and Friends. See you all later, and thanks for joining us, Pat.
My pleasure.